The Night of 1,000 Lanterns, a monk, a woman, and the one path unseen. Episode 1. The Monastery, the Shopkeeper, and Early Spring Light. The first light of early spring crept across the cobblestone paths of Kyoto like a shy visitor. In those dawn moments, the world was quiet enough to hear the blackbirds calling from the rafters of the wooden rooftops and the bamboo groves that lined the outskirts of the city. As the mist rose from the Kamagawa River, merchants stirred in their homes, sliding open shoji screens and venturing out to set up their shops. Lanterns still burned faintly from the previous night, their glow gradually bowing to the emergence of the sun. In this old city, still lit by oil lamps and the glow of paper lanterns in the evenings, a Zen monastery perched on a low hill by a small stand of maple trees. The thick walls of the main hall had withstood decades of storms. In its courtyard was a simple gravel garden raked into swirling patterns that evoked the endless dance of ocean waves, an expression of emptiness and form. On a typical day, the quiet patter of straw sandals might be heard as monks went about their tasks. Inside one of the monastery's side halls, a young monk named Kei sat cross-legged upon a tatami mat. He was clad in a simple grey robe, a set of worry beads in one hand, a small brush in the other. He was transcribing a Zen text onto rice paper, carefully writing each character with measured breath. Satori is the blossoming of a single thought. Read the line he copied. Yet, do not seek after it, for it moves like a reflection in water. Kay exhaled slowly as he brushed the final character. The hush of the monastery weighed on him in a peaceful way. He had come here at the age of 12, entrusted by his family to follow the Buddhist path. He was now 24. 12 years within these walls had shaped him into a calm, introspective figure. The abbot, an elderly man named Shunryu, had taken a special interest in Kei, acknowledging a capacity in him for deep understanding. Yet there was a tender restlessness in Kei's eyes. Something unspoken flickered within his heart. Once he had finished his morning transcription, Kay made his way out of the hall. The corridor opened onto the courtyard's swirling gravel garden, and he bowed to the white expanse. With a quick pivot, he headed toward the temple gate. He had to venture into the city to procure some herbs and incense for the monastery. It was a mundane errand, but these small outings never failed to stir a seed of excitement in him. Kyoto, in its timeless splendor, was a bustling tapestry of humanity, color, and song. When Kay walked down the hill from the monastery, the morning sun was fully in the sky, so that the rooftops glistened with a certain warm hue. He passed by peddlers carrying baskets of fresh produce and children running around in the side streets. The city was waking up to greet another day in the mid-19th century, a time of change, yet also of resolute tradition. Horses and carts shared the roads with foot traffic, and rumors from Edo sometimes filtered in about new technologies. Western ships at the ports, strange machines that harness steam. Yet here in Kyoto, on the threshold of the old ways, life continued as it had for centuries, unhurried, measured, shaped by the rhythms of the seasons and the cycle of festivals. He headed to a small incense shop near the stone bridge. This shop had a modest front, with a wooden sign bearing calligraphy that read, Haru's Fine Incense and Sundries. Its narrow entrance always smelled of sweet sandalwood and fresh cedar. Kay had been coming here for the past 3 years, ever since he was assigned the task of collecting supplies for the monastery. He knew the family who ran the shop, an old couple named Ichiro and Fumi, and their granddaughter Haruko, who now managed the day-to-day interactions with customers. A breeze carried the fragrance of newly bloomed plum blossoms as he slid open the door. Soft light filtered through the paper windows. The place was arranged neatly, with small boxes of incense sticks lining the walls and ceramic jars containing exotic fragrances from distant lands displayed on low shelves. Bunches of dried herbs hung from the ceiling, swaying gently like silent chimes. "Welcome, Kei-san," said Haruko, who emerged from behind a curtain at the back. Her voice was gentle but not timid, and she moved as if each step was part of a choreographed dance. She wore a pale blue kimono embroidered with a delicate motif of trailing wisteria. Her hair was pinned up with a single hairpin made of carved wood in the shape of a leaf. "I trust the day finds you well." Kay bowed slightly, offering a polite smile. "Indeed, Haruko-san. I come for the usual supplies. Temple incense, a small box of sandalwood, some frankincense if you have it, and a bundle of dried ginkgo leaves for medicine." She nodded, turning to gather the items. Over the years, they had had many small exchanges like this. She knew what the monastery needed almost by heart, but today a subtle shift hung in the air between them. Perhaps it was just the new season bringing a certain electricity, though no electricity literally existed in Kyoto at this time. Still, the feeling of newness was there. Their eyes met momentarily. Kay noticed the faint flush in her cheeks, and he lowered his gaze politely. As she packed the items in a small box, she said, "My grandfather has asked me to let you know that we received a new shipment of rare incense from the southern islands. He wonders if the temple would like to try it. They say it's infused with the essence of ocean breezes." "An intriguing notion," Kay said, carefully measuring his words. "The abbot might appreciate something novel as an offering. Yes, please include a small portion." She placed a slender pouch inside the box. "Here it is. It's best lit when the meditation hall is quiet and the mind is ready." He watched her secure the lid. Something about her attention to detail, the way she tied the cord around the box with nimble fingers, stirred a feeling in him. He reminded himself of his vows, of the vow to remain unattached, to see through the illusions of the world. Yet here, in this moment, a gentle longing rose inside him, uninvited but undeniable. It was not lust or mere attraction, it was something deeper. The stirring was the curiosity to know the heart of another, to hear the laughter of someone outside the walls of the monastery. When the gaze lingers, the heart too begins to stir. Perhaps a moment. Kay recalled a haiku the abbot once muttered under his breath. At the time, Kay had not understood its import. Haruko paused. She sensed in Kay's eyes a softness. She felt her own heart skip a beat. Her daily routine was rarely touched by such a poised, introspective presence. The city's bustle, though enchanting in its own right, was a swirl of hurried customers and mundane gossip. Yet when Kay came, it was as if the world slowed to a more contemplative pace. She found herself waiting for his visits, though she never voiced that desire. She felt there was a line that could not be crossed, but she was never sure exactly where that line lay. The bell at the door jingled, heralding another customer. "Pardon me," Haruko said, returning to her usual composure. "I must attend to the next person. Please wait a moment. I'll give you your total." Kay bowed and watched her greet an older woman who needed camphor for her chest ailments. He tried not to stare. Instead, his eyes wandered across the wooden shelves. The scent of frankincense mingled with the subtle fragrance of her hair. From the corner of his eye, he saw her silhouette, graceful, a small smile on her lips as she assisted the customer. He thought of a line from the Diamond Sutra. All conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, or shadows. Like dew or a flash of lightning, thus we shall perceive them. In that moment, he wondered how to reconcile the dreamlike nature of the world with the vivid immediacy of his feelings. Were his emotions illusions, or were they part of the living tapestry that the sutra also encompassed? Shortly thereafter, Haruko returned and handed Kay a slip of paper with the total cost. He paid with coins the monastery had entrusted to him. "I look forward to hearing how the abbot finds the new incense," she said with a small bow. "As do I," Kay replied, "and I thank you for your care." He took the box and turned to leave. Just as he was about to step out, Haruko added quietly, "Kay-san, do you know about the Night of 1,000 Lanterns festival next month?" He paused, hand resting on the sliding door. "I've heard mention of it. The city celebrates the turning of spring to early summer with lanterns everywhere, yes?" She nodded, her voice carrying a soft enthusiasm. "It's a beautiful sight. Lanterns line the streets, the riverbanks, and even the temples. people from all over come to light them and float them on the streams. It's said that for a single night, Kyoto glows with the memory of the ancestors and the dreams of the living. Kay smiled, though a hint of uncertainty touched his expression. Such worldly festivities were not always the domain of Zen monks, yet the abbot sometimes encouraged them to witness life beyond the monastery walls. "Thank you for telling me, Haruko-san. Perhaps I shall see it." When Kay emerged onto the street, the day had grown bright, and a swirl of activity filled the narrow lane. He carried the incense box carefully, as if it were something fragile. Inside, he carried something more fragile still, a heart awakening to the gentle tremor of feeling. The vow of renunciation pressed upon him like a cautious hand on his shoulder. But he sensed that in the very center of Zen teaching lay a paradox. If all things are truly empty, then how can one cling to or reject anything? If the self is no self, what is it that falls in love? As he disappeared into the crowd, Haruko stood at the shop's doorway, gaze lingering. Perhaps she believed that once he turned the corner, he would vanish back into the stillness of the temple, but she also sensed that soon enough he would return. The city, the monastery, and the quiet resonance between them, like a single breath in and out, were intimately connected. That evening, Kay presented the new incense to Abbot Shunryu. The abbot was a slight, silver-haired man of advanced years, his presence like a willow tree, flexible yet deeply rooted. He lit a thin stick of the southern incense, watched the smoke curl skyward, and remarked in a soft voice, "It has a mournful sweetness, like the hush of a distant shore." Kay was not sure what to say, so he bowed in agreement. They sat in the small abbot's chamber, which was lit by a single lantern and the faint glow of the setting sun through paper screens. The abbot sipped tea and glanced at Kay, whose eyes betrayed a quiet restlessness. "You have gone to the city many times, Kay," Shunryu observed. "You are seeing more of life than some of the monks who remain behind these walls. Tell me, what do you learn from it?" Kay hesitated, carefully framing his thoughts. "The city is both chaotic and harmonious at once, Master. There are so many people, each with their own concerns, desires, and sorrows. Yet beneath it all there is a certain rhythm. I learn that life outside has its own discipline, its own patterns, which may also be a kind of Zen." The abbot let out a gentle sigh, the kind that might be mistaken for contentment or acceptance, perhaps both. "Zen is not only found in monasteries," he said, paraphrasing an old teaching. "One who truly sees the way can see it in the marketplace as well as in the temple. The question is whether you can perceive it clearly without getting lost in illusions." Kay bowed again, but in the recesses of his mind he wondered if the feeling he carried for Haruko was an illusion, or could it be part of the way if only viewed with the right wisdom? Abbot Shunryu seemed to read the subtlest shift in Kay's eyes. "Do not be afraid to watch your own heart," he said, almost cryptically. Then he changed the subject to the schedule for morning zazen. That night, after the temple had quieted, Kay crept out to the garden under the moonlight. He knelt on the wooden walkway surrounding the courtyard. The gravel sparkled faintly, resembling miniature waves in a silent sea. A single lantern glowed in the corner, a guardian of the hush. Night of 1,000 lanterns. He turned the phrase over in his mind, a festival that illuminated the city, bridging the visible and the unseen realms of memory and dream. Bright lanterns in spring, flicker like passing fancies. Do they also wake? A haiku formed in his thoughts unbidden. He wondered if Haruko would attend the festival, if they might catch a glimpse of each other in the sea of glowing lights. A second question tugged at his heart. Was it proper to hope for such a thing? Within the sealed silence of the temple, no one but the wind answered. Yet as he breathed in the cool night air, he felt a subtle shift, like the first tremor before a distant bell tolls. He felt that his path and Haruko's path might, in truth, be one path viewed from two angles. The words of a Zen teaching floated through his awareness. Two hands clap, and there is a sound. What is the sound of one hand? He remembered the riddle that sought to jar the mind from dualistic thinking. What if there is no separation between the monastery and the city, between Kay the monk and Kay the man, between Haruko the shopkeeper and Haruko the ephemeral dream figure that dances in his imagination? He rose and returned to his room, determined to let the question settle in the depths of his meditation. As he prepared for rest, the reflection of the moon in a water basin caught his eye. It shimmered, intangible, yet vibrant. He bent down and with one fingertip touched the surface of the water. The reflection scattered, then reformed. Perhaps love is like that. When you try to grasp it, it disappears. But when you let it be, it remains as a perfect image, an echo of something beyond words. Episode 2. Whispers amid the incense smoke. The following week brought an early spring rain that fell steadily over Kyoto. The sound of droplets on the tile rooftops formed a quiet symphony, and the narrow channels along the streets swelled with running water. In such weather, the city lost some of its bustling pace. Umbrellas of woven bamboo and oiled paper bobbed here and there, and shopkeepers who typically displayed their wares on tables outside retreated within their stores. At the Zen monastery, the monks continued their routine unaffected by the rain. Before dawn, they gathered in the main hall for zazen, seated on round cushions. The lamps were dim, the room cool, and the hush profound enough to hear each breath. Kay sat among them, yet he could not entirely quell the stirring in his mind. Bits of memory intruded. Haruko's face, her smile, the timbre of her voice. He tried to let these thoughts rise and fall without attachment, as the abbot had taught. Observe the mind as a clear lake, Shunryu would say, not troubled by the reflections on its surface. But on this day, Kay's internal reflections felt more compelling than usual. After zazen, the monks performed their morning tasks. Some swept the corridors, others tended the gardens. Kay, as usual, helped in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for the communal meal. The rhythmic sound of the knife on the cutting board soothed his mind, allowing the daily discipline to ground him. He remembered an old adage: before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. Perhaps the essence of living was found in such simple tasks. Later, the abbot summoned Kay for an errand. They needed additional cloth for new monk robes and more supplies for the upcoming sermon gathering. "As you are our regular envoy," Shunryu said softly, "please go. Also, there is no harm in observing the city's preparations for the Night of 1,000 Lanterns. We must remain connected to the world around us." Kay bowed and accepted the small pouch of coins. Setting off with a straw hat and umbrella, he descended into Kyoto once more. The rain had subsided into a drizzle, and the grey sky reflected in puddles along the stone paths. As he approached the marketplace district, the hum of commerce greeted him. Vendors sold fish, vegetables, cloth, and pottery, calling out their prices. The smell of grilled eel from a nearby food stall mixed with the wet smell of the rain-soaked street. After purchasing the cloth, Kay found himself gravitating toward Haru's fine incense and sundries. He had no direct reason for going there beyond a subtle longing to see Haruko's face and to replenish the temple's incense stock. The thought that he was indulging a personal desire made him uneasy, but he tried to reassure himself that the monastery always welcomed more incense. He could justify it. When he arrived, the shop was empty of customers. Haruko stood behind the wooden counter, carefully measuring portions of dried lavender into small pouches. A single oil lamp illuminated her graceful hands, and the subdued light from outside cast shifting shadows across the shelves. She looked up and smiled when she saw him. "Kei-san," she greeted, her voice soft but bright. "I wasn't sure if you'd venture out in this weather." He removed his straw hat, droplets of water dripping onto the floor near the entrance. "The abbot asked me to replenish some supplies, and I also wanted to see if the new incense from the southern islands found favor with him." Her eyes lit up. "Ah, yes. Was it well received?" "It was," Kay replied. He said it evokes a distant shore and the hush of waves, which he found conducive to contemplation. Haruko's lips curved into a slight grin. That pleases me. My grandfather was quite proud to have secured it. They stood there for a moment, not entirely sure how to navigate the space between duty and the more intangible pull they felt. The pattering of rain on the roof accentuated the silence. Outside, a rickshaw rolled by, splashing through a puddle. Finally, Haruko cleared her throat. We also have a new batch of rose incense, in case the temple might want something floral for the spring season. But I know that might be a bit too fragrant for deep meditation. He tilted his head. The abbot once said that the mind should be flexible enough to remain calm even with strong scents. Let's take a small box to see what the others think. She set aside her lavender pouches and began gathering a few items for Kay. I also have the bundle of dried ginkgo leaves that you often request, and some powdered sandalwood. Should I prepare them as well? Yes, please. He paused, then added hesitantly, Haruko-san, do you plan to attend the Night of 1,000 Lanterns festival? Her cheeks flushed slightly. I do. My grandparents go every year to float lanterns for our ancestors. I help carry them. It's one of the few times when the entire city transforms into something almost ethereal. Kay nodded, feeling his pulse quicken. I've never been. Monks rarely attend, but the abbot suggested we might observe it. It's said to reflect the interplay of light and shadow. Haruko wrapped the items in cloth and placed them in a small wooden box. As she handed it to Kay, her hand brushed against his. The touch, fleeting as it was, sent a subtle jolt through them both. They locked eyes for an instant before Kay turned away, carefully composing his expression. The moment felt precarious. Neither dared to name what they felt, because naming might bring reality down upon them with all its prohibitions. Yet, within the hush of incense and the gentle drizzle outside, they both understood that some intangible bond had formed, a bond that defied the lines drawn by society or the monastery. No wave can claim the shape it holds, so fleeting. Heart's tide still rises. The words of a haiku slipped through Kay's mind like a secret. He bowed to Haruko. Thank you. As always. She nodded, returning the bow. Travel safely back to the temple. Stepping out into the narrow street, Kay opened his umbrella. A breeze ruffled his robes. He glanced over his shoulder to see Haruko watching him from the doorway. Their eyes met one last time before he melded into the flow of pedestrians with a subtle sense of separation and yet a lingering feeling of connection. The Lantern Maker. A few days later, in the early hours of the morning, Haruko visited a lantern craftsman in a nearby district. The old man, named Goro, was known for crafting exquisite paper lanterns with delicate paintings of cranes, bamboo forests, and cherry blossoms. His workshop was a cluttered but charming space, paper sheets lying about, brushes and dyes scattered on low tables. She had been sent by her grandmother to commission a new set of lanterns for the upcoming festival. Welcome, young lady, Goro said, his voice raspy from years of inhaling paint fumes. Come for your family's lanterns, have you? Haruko smiled politely, bowing. Yes, Goro-san. We'd like 5 lanterns with the family crest, and 5 more with simple designs. My grandmother insists on floating some with poems written on them. He rubbed his chin. Ah, yes. Fumi-san's poems always grace the river with elegance. Shall I leave space for her calligraphy? Please do, Haruko replied, handing him the specifications. We have about 3 weeks until the festival. Is that enough time? The craftsman waved a dismissive hand. It's plenty. I've been doing this for decades. My hands might be old, but they remember how to shape paper and bamboo. He coughed slightly and then eyed Haruko. Excited about the festival, young one? I see a sparkle in your eyes. She blushed. It's always enchanting, Goro-san. He gave her a knowing look. Enchantment often has a face behind it, doesn't it? His words startled her. She tried to feign ignorance, but she couldn't suppress a small, nervous laugh. She quickly changed the subject. Your new lantern designs are very innovative. I especially like the ones with the wave motif. Goro chuckled, not pressing further. Yes, yes. Waves upon waves. I've been inspired by the changing times, the rumors of new fashions from distant shores. He took the order sheet from her and nodded. I'll have these ready. You can pick them up in 2 weeks. Haruko bowed. Arigato gozaimasu, Goro-san. As she turned to leave, he offered one last bit of advice. When you float a lantern for yourself, he said, choose carefully what you write on it. The light it carries might shine on more than just water. She paused at the threshold, allowing his words to sink in. Then she stepped out into the brightening morning. The day promised fair weather, the sky streaked with the pale gold of sunlight. If the city had seemed subdued by rain earlier, now it was alive and stirring once again. As Haruko walked back to her family's shop, she reflected on Goro's cryptic wisdom. In her mind's eye, she pictured the festival night, the lanterns drifting on the river, their reflected light dancing on the water's surface. If she wrote something personal, might it guide the course of the heart? She thought of Kay, his gentle voice, the subtle kindness in his gaze. Maybe a single line of poetry could honor what she felt without dishonoring the line he must walk. A monk's doubt. Meanwhile, Kay stood in the temple library, sorting through scrolls at Abbot Shunryu's request. The library was a dim, cool space with high wooden shelves stacked with texts on Buddhist teachings, calligraphy, and poetry. Dust motes swirled in the shafts of light that filtered through narrow windows. Kay felt a sense of calm here, yet beneath that surface calm, something stirred. He found a scroll containing Zen koans and opened it randomly. His eyes fell on one. A monk asked Joshu, "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" Joshu answered, "Mu." Kay had studied this koan many times. Mu was the negation, the invitation to realize the emptiness beyond yes and no, beyond dualities. The mind's usual logic falters before it. The heart learns to see that the question itself might be illusory. Yet he wondered how to apply mu to the feeling of longing that blooms in one's chest. If love arises, is it also empty? If so, is it worthless, or is it an expression of the infinite? The teaching suggested that emptiness and form are not two. Emptiness is form, and form is emptiness. Love, too, is part of that grand tapestry, perhaps no less sacred than the temple's chanting. He recalled the abbot's gentle hints. Do not be afraid to watch your own heart. But Kay also remembered the vow he had taken to remain unattached. Still, many Zen masters of old had wives and children, especially in the Rinzai tradition. The abbot himself had once told a story of Ikkyu, a famous Zen poet who wandered outside the monastery walls, engaging with the world at large. Kay was startled from his reverie by the entrance of a fellow monk named Shinji, a peer who was a few years older. Shinji gave him a curious look. Lost in thought, Kay. Ah, Shinji-san, Kay said, quickly rolling the scroll. I was just reflecting on a koan. Shinji nodded, his tone measured. The abbot often speaks highly of your diligence, but sometimes diligence can turn into introspective entanglement. Be mindful. Kay bowed. Shinji was not unkind, but he was strict about monastic rules. If he suspected Kay was harboring worldly attachments, he might raise the issue with the abbot. Thank you for your guidance, Kay said. They shared a brief silence, the musty air of old parchment around them. Shinji then returned to his task of organizing texts, and Kay did the same. Yet Kay's mind was not fully on the library. He recalled the subtle warmth of Haruko's hand when it brushed his. He recalled her invitation, or was it just a mention of the festival and the glow in her eyes? A meeting of eyes. It was inevitable that Kay would return to the shop again, given the monastery's growing list of needs. Every few days, a new item was requested: rare herbs, ceremonial resins, or specialized incense. Each time he tried to maintain a composed demeanor, hiding the flicker in his heart. Yet each time he saw Haruko, the flicker grew brighter. Over small conversations, whether about how to grind certain herbs for a poultice or how certain incense might complement the rainy season, their bond deepened. It remained unspoken but present, like a reed flute playing in the background of a quiet room. On one such day, Ichiro, Haruko's grandfather, manned the counter. The old man's voice was gruff, but his eyes were sharp. He recognized Kei immediately. "The young monk who likes southern incense," he said with a grin. "I hear from Haruko you found it suitable." Kei bowed. "Yes, we did. I've come for some more supplies." Ichiro studied him for a moment. "Haruko is in the back, preparing an order. You can wait here." He rose from his stool, stepping outside for a moment, leaving Kei alone in the small storefront. Kei could not help glancing toward the curtain behind which Haruko worked. The store was silent except for the faint sound of her humming a folk tune. Eventually she emerged, carrying a wooden tray with carefully wrapped packages of incense. She halted slightly when she saw Kei waiting. "Oh," she exclaimed softly. "I didn't realize it was you." A gentle pink flush touched her cheeks. They stood close, the scent of roses and sandalwood drifting between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Haruko cleared her throat. "We just received a new shipment of cedarwood resin. It's quite potent, and the abbot might find it useful for certain ceremonies." Kei's composure nearly cracked at the sight of her. "Yes, let us add that." She turned to place a small jar of the resin on the tray. "You'll be at the festival, you said." He hesitated, not wanting to be overheard by Ichiro, who might be lurking outside. I will try to attend, if only to witness it." Haruko lowered her gaze. "I'll be there, of course. My grandparents and I always go. Perhaps our paths will cross in the lantern-lit streets." He felt his chest tighten, both thrilled and anxious. "Perhaps," he echoed. He paid for the items, gently lifted the bundle, and offered a slight bow. "Thank you, Haruko-san." As he turned to leave, she called after him softly, "Kei-san." When he looked back, she seemed to struggle with her words. Then she simply said, "Take care on the roads." The farewell felt laden with more meaning than the words conveyed. Outside, Ichiro gave Kei a friendly nod as he passed, saying nothing but perhaps suspecting everything. Kei walked away, hearing his own heartbeat in his ears. The city around him, with its winding alleys and lively crowds, felt strangely hushed. Haruko's Confession. That evening, Haruko helped her grandmother Fumi prepare supper. Steam rose from a pot of miso soup, and the smell of grilled fish filled the shop's back room. Haruko's mind was only half on her tasks. She stirred the soup absent-mindedly until her grandmother placed a gentle hand on hers. "Child," Fumi said softly, "the soup will boil over if you keep stirring like that." Haruko pulled back her wooden ladle, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Obachan. My thoughts were elsewhere." Fumi studied her granddaughter's face. She had raised Haruko since she was a small girl after Haruko's parents passed away from illness. She knew her granddaughter's moods intimately. "Is there something troubling you?" Haruko bit her lip, wondering how much she could reveal. Then she sighed. "There is. A monk from the nearby Zen temple. He comes for incense and herbs." Fumi's eyes glimmered with understanding. "I see. Your heart moves, does it?" Haruko looked away, tears prickling her eyes. "Yes, and I don't know what to do. He's gentle, thoughtful, but he's a monk. They take vows." Her grandmother patted her shoulder. "Vows vary with each school of Buddhism. Some monks remain strictly celibate. Others interpret the teachings more openly. But more important than that, child, is that your feelings are real. You must accept them before you can see what is to be done." Haruko sniffled, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety. She had half expected her grandmother to scold her for harboring impossible dreams. What if it leads to pain? What if he must reject me? Or I him? Fumi took her hand firmly. Life is filled with suffering, Haru-chan, but also with joy. The question is whether you can face both with an open heart. Let the festival come. Let events unfold. The truth will reveal itself when the lanterns float. A small smile broke across Haruko's face. She nodded and wiped away the moisture in her eyes. She helped her grandmother finish supper in relative silence, but her heart felt lighter. Whatever might happen, she had at least acknowledged the presence of this feeling. That itself was a kind of courage. In the mirror's moon, a hidden face smiles softly, reflection of hope. In the temple garden. At the monastery, Kay sat in the garden at dusk. The swirl of gravel glowed faintly in the lantern light. He meditated on the concept of no self and dependent origination. A single cherry blossom fluttered from a nearby branch, landing delicately at his feet. He opened his eyes to watch it settle. Even the falling of a blossom is part of the dance of causality. He reflected. He had met Haruko because the temple needed incense. The temple needed incense because of the abbot's devotion to ritual. The abbot's devotion to ritual was shaped by his own teachers. On and on the web of causes extended, weaving them all together in a single tapestry. No one event stands alone. If their meeting was simply part of the cosmic interplay, was it truly forbidden? Another question followed. Could it be that their paths converged for a reason beyond what monastic rules define? Yet the notion of reason might be another delusion. The abbot once said, "Truth cannot be grasped by reason alone. One must experience it as the reflection of the moon in a bowl of still water." Kay closed his eyes again, feeling a tumult of emotions swirl within him. Sit with it, he told himself. Breathe. If the heart was unsettled, it was as the Diamond Sutra taught. Illusions arise. Illusions pass. Clinging to them brings suffering. Yet if everything is empty, is there also an emptiness to the boundary that says I am a monk? You are not. He heard the faint ringing of a small bell, signaling the evening meal. Rising, Kay brushed the dust from his robes. He glanced at the fallen cherry blossom one last time before heading into the main hall. As he walked, he wondered if the abbot perceived his inner struggle. Shunryu had grown increasingly cryptic in his smiles and remarks lately, as if waiting to see what Kay would discover on his own. The evening meal passed quietly, a simple fare of rice gruel and pickled vegetables. The monks ate in silence, focusing on each bite. Then they dispersed to their quarters, leaving only the soft flicker of lanterns in the corridors. Kay retired to his small chamber, where he lit a single oil lamp and sat on the tatami mat. He opened the wooden box of incense he had bought from Haruko and took out one slender stick of cedar wood. After lighting it, he watched the smoke curl in the lamplight. In the bending smoke, a silent question arises. Who fans the flames? He penned a brief note in his journal, capturing that haiku. Then he closed his eyes and allowed the cedar aroma to guide him into contemplation, the question of love and the vow swirling in his mind like drifting clouds. Thus ends the second episode, where the threads of connection deepen yet remain veiled in uncertainty. Both Kay and Haruko grapple with feelings they cannot fully name. Around them, Kyoto continues its gentle preparations for the Night of 1,000 Lanterns, that luminous festival which looms on the horizon like a promise, or perhaps a test. Each step they take draws them closer to that moment, when all may be illuminated by the glow of 1,000 lights, revealing both the illusions of separation and the simple truth of oneness. Episode 3. A blossom of doubt in Kyoto. As the festival drew nearer, Kyoto's atmosphere grew brighter, echoing the emergence of early summer. Stalls began to appear along the riverside, advertising colored paper for lantern making and sweetmeats for the children. The city's main thoroughfares took on a festive air, with local artisans demonstrating their crafts, from calligraphy to toy making. In the evenings, people started testing their lanterns, lighting small candles within paper shells to see how they might glow on the night of the festival. For Kay, each passing day felt like an incremental step toward an unnamed destiny. The abbot became somewhat more distant, as if encouraging Kay to find his own insight rather than offering direct instruction. Shinji, the fellow monk, occasionally gave Kay concerned glances, but said little. Within Kay's chest, anticipation mingled with trepidation. Would he really go to the festival? And if he did, what then? For Haruko, the shop bustled with customers, buying incense for blessings and a variety of herbs to mix with the festival's celebratory foods. Her grandparents seemed pleased with the uptick in business, yet they also noticed her pensive expression. Late at night, Haruko would lie awake, imagining the glow of countless lanterns reflected in the water and wondering if Kay would be among the throng of onlookers. In her heart, she waged an internal debate. Could she really hope for more than a passing moment with him? The lantern's first light. One warm evening, about a week before the festival, the city held a small pre-festival ceremony along the banks of the Kamagawa River. People gathered to light a handful of lanterns in honor of the ancestors, sending them adrift on the water. The event was not as grand as the upcoming main celebration, but it served as a solemn reminder of the ephemeral nature of life. Kay stood at a distance, near a wooden bridge, his monk's robes blending into the dusk. He watched families kneel by the water's edge, lighting candles and gently placing lanterns on the rippling current. The reflection of the lanterns formed wavering orbs of light, like tiny spirits making their journey downstream. The faint murmur of prayers and the aroma of incense hung in the cool air. If life is but a dream, then these lanterns are dreamlights, he thought, and yet they mean so much to these people. He was about to turn away when he heard a familiar voice. "Kei-san?" Haruko stepped forward from the shadows, carrying a small lantern in her hands. She wore a simple cotton yukata with a subtle pattern of leaves, her hair pinned back. Her eyes sparkled with subdued excitement. "I thought that was you." Caught off guard, Kei bowed slightly. "Haruko-san, I wanted to observe this ceremony. I didn't realize you'd be here." She offered a small smile. "It's a tradition in our family to float a lantern each night of the week leading up to the main festival. My grandparents are back by that large willow, lighting incense for our ancestors." Kay glanced over her shoulder to see an older couple standing by a bending willow tree, the flicker of candlelight illuminating their faces. He recognized them from the shop, but was uncertain if they recognized him. Ichiro seemed to look in their direction, but it was too dark to tell if he took note of Kay. Haruko hesitated, then gestured to the lantern in her hands. "Would you like to join me in setting this lantern on the water? It's a custom to say a small prayer or wish before letting it float away." He looked at the flickering candle inside the paper shell, depicting a single brushstroke image of a lotus. The lotus, an emblem of purity rising from the mud. He swallowed, aware of the lines he might be crossing. Yet something deeper, an undercurrent of empathy, respect, and longing, compelled him to agree. "I would be honored," he said quietly. They walked together to the water's edge, each step echoing in Kay's mind. He removed his sandals, stepping onto the damp stones. Haruko knelt, carefully placing the lantern on the surface. Kay knelt beside her, the hem of his robe touching the water. "Would you like to offer a prayer?" Haruko asked softly. He paused, feeling the weight of tradition and the swirl of personal emotion. Finally, he spoke. "May all beings realize the unity of emptiness and form. May all hearts find ease in the midst of sorrow. May love guide us, without binding us." His voice trembled slightly at the last line. Haruko closed her eyes, adding her own silent prayer. Then, with gentle hands, they nudged the lantern forward. It bobbed gently before drifting downstream, its flame bright in the night. A hush passed between them as they watched the lantern float away, joining the others. In that moment, it felt as though the entire city faded, leaving only the river, the light, and the profound stillness between two souls. Echoes at the monastery. The next morning, Kay assisted in the main hall with a ceremony for a visiting group of pilgrims. Chanting filled the air, accompanied by the resonant beat of the wooden mokugyo drum. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, illuminating incense smoke in golden columns. After the ceremony, Abbot Shunru approached Kay. The old man's eyes were as calm as a placid lake. "I hear the city held a pre-festival lantern ceremony last night," he said softly. "Did you see it?" Kay hesitated, wondering if the abbot knew more than he let on. "Yes, master. I observed from a distance." The abbot nodded. "Beautiful, is it not? A dance of light upon water, both fleeting and profound." He paused, then added, "Be mindful, Kay. Light can guide one through darkness, but it can also dazzle the eyes." Kay bowed, a wave of guilt washing over him. He left the main hall, feeling the weight of the abbot's words. Did Shunryu suspect something? Zen teachings emphasized direct experience, not dogma, but that did not mean that any path was free of consequences. Love, desire, these could be powerful illusions or powerful revelations. Retreating to the monastery's small garden, Kay tried to settle into zazen. Yet each time he closed his eyes, he saw Haruko's face lit by lantern glow. He remembered the soft murmur of the river and the warmth of her presence. The tension between his vow and his heart's longing gnawed at him, like a gentle but persistent wind shaping a cliff. Clouds of rumor. In the city, rumors sometimes formed like summer clouds, drifting from place to place before dissipating. One afternoon, Haruko overheard a pair of elderly customers whispering about a monk seen by the river at night, setting a lantern afloat with a young woman. She felt her cheeks burn, though the old women did not recognize her as that young woman. They seemed more interested in the scandalous possibility of monks abandoning their station than in identifying who it might have been. That evening, Haruko confided in her grandmother again. "Oba-chan, rumors are forming. People talk when they see a monk outside the monastery at night, especially if he's with a woman." Fumi placed her teacup down gently. "Are you worried about him?" Haruko nodded. "Yes. If these rumors spread, it could harm his reputation. Or worse, cause trouble at the temple. I don't want him to be shamed or punished because of me." Her grandmother listened quietly, then said, "True devotion is tested by the judgments of others. But consider, is there shame in sharing a moment of compassion and beauty by the river? Perhaps the real shame lies in minds that refuse to see the world's oneness." Haruko sighed. "I want to believe that. Yet the world we live in is full of rules and expectations." Fumi smiled softly. "Indeed it is. But rules change. Hearts, however, remain steadfast in their need for truth." Those words comforted Haruko somewhat, yet she could not entirely dispel her worry. The festival approached daily, and with it, the possibility that she and Kay might be thrust into the spotlight of gossip if they were seen together. Still, a quiet hope lingered in her chest that they would meet beneath the glow of 1,000 lanterns, if only for a moment. Conflict in the temple. Tensions in the temple rose subtly when Shinji, the older monk, learned of the rumors. One afternoon, he confronted Kay in the narrow corridor near their sleeping quarters. The air outside was still, a prelude to a late spring shower. "Kay," Shinji said in a low voice, "I've heard whisperings in the city. They say a young monk has been seen frequenting an incense shop and was observed at the river with a woman. I hope you can reassure me these rumors have no substance." Kay felt his stomach tighten. Shinji is direct, and I cannot easily deceive him. He took a breath. "I do visit the incense shop, as it is my assigned duty. And yes, I observed the lantern ceremony at the river." Shinji's gaze hardened. "With a woman?" Kay met his eyes but said nothing for a moment. Then, quietly, "Yes. She was there, but I did nothing that dishonors the monastery." Shinji frowned. "It is not only about actions. Our vow calls for detachment. You should be wary of appearances. Gossip can tarnish the temple's name. Moreover, the abbot expects you to cultivate wisdom, not entangle yourself in worldly attachments. Kay bowed his head, a flush of shame creeping into his cheeks. I understand. It is not my intention to dishonor anyone. Shinji studied Kay's face. I hope you do. Consider carefully your path, Kay. Zen is not about following rules blindly, but about understanding the nature of reality. If your heart strays, you must face the consequences. With that, Shinji turned and left. Kay stood there, the corridor's dim light catching motes of dust in the air. His heart pounded. Is this how it begins? The slow unraveling of all I have been taught to hold sacred. He retreated to his room, lighting a small lamp against the gathering dusk. There, he tried to focus on the Heart Sutra text. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Form is not other than emptiness. Emptiness is not other than form. He traced the characters with his finger, trying to recall the resonance of these words. Love, also, must be emptiness. Yet it takes form in the hearts of individuals. Could it be that there is no contradiction between the vow and the feeling that stirred within him? Hidden moments. As the days inched closer to the festival, Kay found fewer opportunities to see Haruko. His tasks at the monastery multiplied, partly because Shinji reassigned him to chores that kept him on temple grounds more often. He recognized this as a subtle effort to limit his excursions. Yet fate, or the interplay of cause and effect, offered small windows of chance. One afternoon, when the abbot needed special medicinal herbs, Kay was sent again to the city. After completing the purchase, he passed by the incense shop. Haruko was at the doorway, as if expecting him. She glanced around to ensure no one was watching, then motioned him inside. I have something for the abbot, she said, leading Kay to a rear storeroom. The space was small, lined with shelves of fragrant sachets and clay jars. A single lamp lit the dark interior. She handed him a neatly wrapped parcel. My grandfather came across a rare bark that helps with joint pain, and he thought the abbot might appreciate it. Kay accepted the parcel. Thank you. He suffers from stiffness in his knees. This is most kind. Haruko lowered her voice, worry etched on her face. Are you in trouble at the temple? He sighed, not wanting to burden her. There is concern, yes. Rumors spread fast, and Shinji is cautious about appearances. A tear glistened in her eye. She spoke softly. I never wanted to cause difficulties for you. He shook his head, his voice gentle. You haven't. I bear responsibility for my own actions. Besides, I cherish the moments we've shared, however fleeting. The words hovered in the charged space. In the corner, the single lamp flickered, throwing dancing shadows on the walls. Haruko took a half-step closer. Kei-san, Before she could continue, the door slid open. It was Ichiro. He paused, eyeing them both in the close quarters. Haruko quickly moved away, trying to appear composed. Ah, Kei-san, Ichiro said evenly, as if acknowledging him for the first time that day. Getting ready to return to the temple? Kei bowed. Yes, sir. Haruko-san was just providing this bark for the abbot. I'll be on my way. Ichiro nodded, his expression unreadable. Safe travels. May the Buddha guide you. Kei exited with the parcel in hand, heart pounding. Did Ichiro suspect something more? The older man was difficult to read, but Kei sensed no malice in him, only a quiet watchfulness. The weight of the encounter settled upon him. He pressed the parcel to his chest and hurried back to the monastery, the afternoon light fading into the warm glow of the city. Seeds of resolve. That night, Kay knelt by a small altar in his room. He lit a candle and placed it beside a simple statue of the Buddha. The reflection of the flame flickered on the statue's serene face. Kay closed his eyes and brought his palms together in gassho. Whatever this path is, let me tread it with honesty, he whispered. If my heart must break open, Let it break for the sake of truth, not deceit. He recalled lines from a Zen poem. Standing at a crossroads, the moon overhead. North, south, east, west, all are the same road. He wondered if, in the grand view of emptiness, the distinction between monastic life and worldly life was merely another concept. The real question was not about abiding by rules or defying them, but about perceiving the unity behind all appearances. Love might be a path to insight as surely as silent meditation could be, or it could be a trap binding one to attachment. The difference lay in one's clarity of mind. Exhaling, he let the question drift away. Perhaps the upcoming festival will bring clarity. For now, he would prepare for the ceremony the monastery planned to hold in conjunction with the Night of 1,000 Lanterns, an offering of prayers and chanting for the city's well-being. The abbot had hinted that Kei might lead part of the chanting. That alone was an honor, signifying Shunryu's trust in him. As he drifted into sleep, he dreamt of lanterns floating on the river. In the dream, each lantern became a star in the night sky, converging into a single brilliant light that illuminated the entire world. Haruko stood beside him, but she was also not separate from him. She was the reflection in the water, the echo of the chanting, the warmth in his own heart. One path, many forms. When he awoke, sweat beaded his brow, and he could still feel the resonance of that dreamlight behind his eyelids. Thus concludes the third episode, in which the tension deepens through rumor, confrontation, and secret encounters. Both Kei and Haruko stand on the brink of a deeper realization, uncertain whether love is a bridge to enlightenment or a snare of delusion. Kyoto's quiet streets, the hush of incense shops, and the drifting lanterns on the river all seem to echo the same silent question. Are the two paths, monastic and worldly, truly different, or are they one and the same, merely glimpsed from different angles? Episode 4. The Night of 1,000 Lanterns. The long-anticipated evening arrived with a sky clear as polished glass. The festival known as the Night of 1,000 Lanterns transformed Kyoto into a realm of flickering radiance. All along the streets, lanterns of countless colors dangled from eaves and poles, and the soft glow of candlelight illuminated every corner. The Kamagawa River shimmered in anticipation, lined with families, travelers, and monks who had come to witness or participate in the spectacle. Twilight at the monastery. At dusk, Kei stood on the veranda of the monastery's main hall, wearing a formal robe of dark blue. A hush permeated the temple as the monks assembled for an evening service meant to coincide with the city's festival. They lit the temple's own lanterns, some shaped like lotus flowers, others adorned with calligraphic verses. The abbot had arranged for a small group of monks to later carry these lanterns down the hill toward the river, symbolically bridging the realm of Zen practice and the world outside. Abbot Shunryu approached Kei, who held one of the lanterns in his hands. The old man smiled quietly. Tonight, we chant for the peace and happiness of all beings. You shall lead the final sutra. Open your heart and let the words flow through you. Kei bowed deeply. He felt the abbot's gaze upon him, gentle yet all-seeing. Surely the abbot knows of my inner turmoil, Kei thought. Yet Shunryu offered no reproach, only a soft invitation to embrace the moment. The monks proceeded into the main hall. Golden light from numerous lanterns illuminated the statues of bodhisattvas and guardians at the altar. Incense smoke spiraled upward as Kei began to chant. His voice resonated with a clarity he had never quite achieved before, his heart brimming with emotion. He chanted not merely for the city, but for Haruko, for himself, for the entire unfolding tapestry of existence. Gate, gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi Svaha. The Heart Sutra's final mantra echoed in the hall, weaving into the stillness that followed. Shunryu then led them in a final dedication of merit, and the ceremony concluded. Now it was time to descend to Kyoto's heart. Lantern Procession. A group of monks, including Kay, followed the abbot down the winding path from the temple. Each carried a lantern bearing the temple's seal, a lotus in a circle. At intervals, other small temples joined the procession, merging into a slow, solemn flow of light. Townsfolk lined the roads to watch, some bowing in respect, others simply in awe of the serene procession. Kay observed the myriad lanterns strung above doorways. Children ran around, laughing as they carried handheld lanterns shaped like dragons or butterflies. The festival's energy was vibrant, yet it felt peaceful, as if everyone had momentarily set aside daily cares to bask in shared wonder. Once they reached the riverbank, the monks arranged themselves under a large willow tree. A small table had been set with candles and a statue of Kannon, the Bodhisattva of compassion. Abbot Shunryu led a short prayer, then invited the monks to release their lanterns onto the gentle current. A hush fell upon the gathering. One by one, the monks lit their lanterns, said a silent dedication, and placed them on the water. The bobbing lights joined hundreds of others drifting downstream, painting the river with luminous points of color. Kay knelt on the stones, gripping his lantern. His reflection wavered in the water, and the glow of the city's lanterns shimmered around him. If all is emptiness, how does one love? If all is one, how can there be forbidden desire? He closed his eyes, recalling a line of Zen poetry. At the still point of the turning world, there the dance is. He opened his eyes and placed his lantern gently on the river's surface. Then he rose, stepping aside to let the next monk release theirs. The abbot glanced at him with a mild nod, as if to say, "Go, see what you must see." Kay bowed and stepped away from the group, blending into the crowd. In the glow of 1,000 lights. The city streets were awash with lanterns hung at varying heights, some shaped like fish, others adorned with calligraphy or images of mythical creatures. A gentle cacophony of laughter, music, and the rustling of robes filled the night. Street vendors sold sweet rice dumplings, grilled squid, and tea. The fragrance of incense and festival food mingled in the warm breeze. Kay navigated the throng, occasionally bowing politely to those who recognized his monk's attire. He glanced around, searching for a particular figure. His heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and doubt. Will she be here? Should I seek her out or simply let fate guide our steps? Suddenly, amid the sea of faces and dancing lights, he spotted Haruko. She stood near a small wooden stall selling candied fruits, wearing a light pink yukata decorated with subtle lotus motifs. Her hair was pinned with a delicate ornament shaped like a crescent moon. He noticed she was alone at that moment. Her grandparents must have been elsewhere, perhaps speaking with acquaintances. He approached slowly, the crowd parting like a dream. When she turned and saw him, her eyes widened in gentle surprise. "Kei-san, I didn't expect to see you so soon." He offered a small bow, smiling softly. The ceremony finished, and the abbot gave me leave to wander. He glanced at the lights overhead. "It's breathtaking, isn't it?" She nodded, eyes shining. "It is. Every year I come here, but tonight, somehow it feels different." They stood amidst the swirl of festival-goers, neither daring to articulate the deeper meaning of her words. Then Haruko gestured toward the river with a tilt of her head. "Shall we walk by the water? It might be a bit quieter." He agreed, and they wove through the crowd until they reached a stretch of the riverbank where the lanterns bobbed serenely. The reflection of the city lights danced in the ripples, forming a watercolor painting of infinite hues. A bridge arched gracefully nearby, lanterns adorning its sides. They strolled side by side, the hum of distant drums and flutes accenting the hush between them. Finally, Haruko spoke, her voice tinged with an undercurrent of emotion. "I was worried you wouldn't come, or that you might be prevented." Kay exhaled, gazing at the procession of lanterns on the water. "I nearly was. Shinji, another monk, warned me about the rumors. But the abbot doesn't forbid us from witnessing life. He only asks that we remain mindful." She nodded, her gaze fixed on the lanterns drifting away. I don't want to cause you harm, Kei-san. If my presence leads to trouble in your monastery. Her words trailed off as she struggled to articulate the complexity of her feelings. He turned to her, noticing how the lantern glow softened her features. I don't see you as harm. If anything, seeing you has made me question the nature of my path in a way that might deepen my understanding. Zen teaches us not to cling to illusions, but maybe the greatest illusion is believing that life and practice are separate. She felt her heart swell at his words. Tentatively, she reached out and touched his hand, so lightly that it might have been a whisper of contact. Yet that whisper carried the weight of everything unsaid. Kay closed his eyes, allowing the moment to pass through him like a breeze. In the silent glow, hands brush as if by moonlight. Stars fill the river. A haiku formed in his mind, capturing the moment's essence. He gently withdrew his hand, mindful of the passing crowds and the vow he still held, but the intimacy of that touch lingered like a soft echo. Family interlude. They continued walking until they spotted Ichiro and Fumi standing under a cluster of willow branches, preparing to release their own lanterns. Haruko's face registered both relief and apprehension. "Come, Kei-san," she said, summoning her courage. "Let's greet them." Ichiro and Fumi turned, their expressions unreadable for a moment. Then Fumi offered a welcoming smile. "Kei-san, it's good to see you," she said. "We've heard of the temple's chanting tonight. It must have been beautiful." Kei bowed, feeling uncertain of Ichiro's reaction. "Yes, the abbot led us in prayer for the city's prosperity." Ichiro regarded Kei for a moment before speaking. "Would you like to help us set these lanterns afloat? We have one for Haruko's parents." Haruko's eyes softened at the mention of her deceased parents. Kei bowed again. "It would be an honor." They knelt by the water, each lighting a candle within a lantern. Ichiro recited a brief prayer for the departed, while Fumi softly hummed a chant she had learned in her youth. The lanterns were gently placed on the river, joining the thousands now drifting under the moonlit sky. The reflection of each lantern upon the water seemed to convey a different story, a mosaic of love, loss, hope, and memory. When the moment passed, Ichiro clasped his hands behind his back. This festival reminds us that life is like these lanterns, bright for a time, then gone. The question is what meaning we give to that brightness. Fumi patted Haruko's shoulder. "Child, take Kei-san around the festival a bit longer if you wish. Your grandfather and I will head home soon. We're getting old for such late festivities." Haruko bowed, grateful. She and Kei thanked them, and the couple departed into the gentle bustle, lanterns lighting their way. Kei couldn't help but sense that Ichiro and Fumi, despite any initial reservations, held no malice. Perhaps they even approved in some unspoken way, or at least withheld judgment. A quiet revelation. As the night wore on, the festival's energy did not wane. Street performers juggled flaming torches, musicians played lively tunes, and the aroma of sweet bean cakes filled the air. Kei and Haruko meandered through the streets, sometimes chatting about little things, childhood memories, favorite flowers, the best tea houses in Kyoto. At other times they walked in companionable silence, letting the festival's glow speak for them. Eventually, they reached a small footbridge away from the main crowds. The air was still, the reflection of the moon dancing in the shallow current below. They stopped at the bridge's apex, gazing at the distant lanterns flickering like fireflies. "I've never felt more alive," Haruko whispered, breaking the silence. "And yet, I'm aware this can't go on indefinitely. Us meeting in secret, the tension it causes." Kei's chest tightened. He placed a hand on the wooden railing, feeling the night breeze against his face. "I know," he said, voice hushed. "But tonight, let's be here, fully. Tomorrow, we can face whatever comes." She turned to him, eyes glimmering with tears. "Kei-san, Do you ever wish you weren't a monk? He paused, weighing his words carefully. There are moments I wonder, but the monastery has shaped who I am. Zen has taught me how to see beyond illusions. Yet love, is it also an illusion, or is it a path to seeing oneness? Haruko placed a hand on his forearm, as if to anchor him. I believe love can be an opening. If Zen sees the interconnectedness of all things, then love isn't separate from that truth. It might be the most direct way to feel it. He closed his eyes, letting her words settle. He remembered a koan. When you meet the Buddha on the road, kill the Buddha. This radical statement suggests that clinging to any form, even the idea of Buddha or monastic life, can become an obstacle. If everything is Buddha nature, then clinging to one aspect as more sacred than another is delusion. When he opened his eyes, he spoke softly. Perhaps we've been seeing two paths where there is only one. The path of Zen does not necessarily exclude the path of the heart. Maybe they are the same path, only seen from different angles. Haruko felt a surge of relief and hope. Does that mean you might? He smiled, a gentle sadness in his eyes. I don't know what the future holds. The monastery is my home, and I cannot forsake it lightly, but I also cannot deny what I feel. They leaned on the railing, the distant laughter and music of the festival echoing behind them. Above, the sky was awash with starlight. Below, the river shimmered with countless lanterns, each carrying a wish, a memory, a prayer. In that moment, they both sensed an unspoken realization. The illusion of separateness was just that, an illusion. Their hearts, the city, the floating lanterns, the entire universe were facets of a single jewel. 1,000 lanterns drift upon the silent stream. All lights, one river. In the distance, fireworks began to illuminate the sky in bursts of red, blue, and gold. Haruko and Kei watched, transfixed, as trails of sparks cascaded like falling blossoms. For an instant, the entire city seemed ablaze with color, and in that brilliance, they saw each other's faces clearly. No walls, no veils, just two human beings standing in awe of creation. The night wore on, and eventually the festival reached its crescendo. People began dispersing, carrying their lanterns home as keepsakes or letting them drift until their flames went out. Kei walked Haruko back toward her neighborhood, mindful of keeping a respectful distance in public. When they reached the side street leading to her home, she paused. Thank you, she said, her voice trembling with emotion, for tonight, for sharing this. He inclined his head. Thank you for inviting me into a world I might otherwise have merely observed from a distance. They stood there, eyes locked, the hush of the late hour settling around them. Then, with a final bow, Kei turned and disappeared into the lantern-lit streets, making his way back to the monastery. Haruko watched him go, tears sliding down her cheeks, not tears of sadness alone, but tears that held a strange mixture of joy, gratitude, and uncertainty. Thus ended the grand night of 1,000 lanterns, a night that would linger in their minds as both a culmination and a beginning. The illusions of separation had flickered in the festival's glow, revealing a deeper unity. Yet the challenge remained: how to reconcile this insight with the demands of daily life, of vows, duties, and societal norms. As the city's lanterns slowly dimmed, a new day waited on the horizon, pregnant with possibility and consequence. Episode 5. Confrontations and Crossroads. The morning after the festival was surprisingly quiet in Kyoto. A gentle breeze carried the scent of extinguished lanterns and spent fireworks, as though the city itself needed time to reflect. Shopkeepers began to collect stray paper decorations, children dozed later than usual, and pilgrims who had come from afar prepared to return home with memories of the luminous night. Temple Aftermath. At the monastery, Kei rose before dawn, as was customary, but his heart felt transformed by the previous evening's experiences. He performed his morning ablutions in the cold water of a stone basin and then hurried to the main hall for Zosen. The silent hall welcomed him, the other monks already seated on their cushions. He found his place, crossed his legs, and began to focus on his breath. Yet the quiet space of meditation seemed far from empty. Images of Haruko's face lit by lantern glow surfaced again and again. Rather than fight them, Kei tried to observe them as passing clouds. If Zen is about direct experience, then this longing is also part of the way. He inhaled, exhaled, and observed. Gradually his heart settled, and he felt a sense of strange, calm acceptance. The moment Zazen ended, Shinji approached him. "Kei," he said in a clipped tone, "the abbot wishes to see you." Kei bowed, sensing that this summons might concern his nocturnal wanderings. He followed Shinji down a corridor to Shunryu's private chamber. The paper screens were drawn, allowing soft morning light to enter. Incense burned on a low table where the abbot knelt, a teapot by his side. The abbot beckoned Kei to kneel opposite him. Shinji closed the door, leaving them alone. Shunryu poured tea into 2 small cups, offering one to Kei. "You led the chanting well last night," he began in his gentle voice. Kei bowed, accepting the tea. "Thank you, master." Shunryu sipped his tea thoughtfully. After a pause, he spoke again. "I understand you separated from the group during the festival and spent time among the crowds. That is not prohibited. Indeed, I encouraged you to see the world, but some of the monks question your intentions." A tightness formed in Kei's throat. "I went to observe the festival's depth," he said softly, choosing his words with care. "It was enlightening in many ways." Shunryu nodded slowly. "Yes, the illusions of separation can be illuminated by a single flame. Yet illusions also multiply if the mind clings to form." He set his cup down, meeting Kei's eyes. "Kei, you're grappling with feelings for a young woman in the city. Is that correct?" Kei felt his heart pound. He considered deflecting or denying, but the abbot's gaze was piercing, compassionate, yet uncompromising. "Yes," he said finally, "I have feelings I cannot deny." They arose naturally, without intent. I wrestle with them, not wishing to betray my vow, but also seeing the truth that love, too, might be part of the way. Shunryu closed his eyes briefly. "I see. This monastery is based on a vow of detachment, but not all Zen traditions interpret that vow identically. Some masters took spouses, had families, yet remained deeply rooted in realization. The question is whether this love stems from the ego's craving or from genuine insight into oneness." Kei listened, feeling both hope and confusion. "I'm uncertain, master. I only know I feel no malice or lustful greed, but rather a sense of unity, of deep empathy. Yet I worry about how others will perceive it, or how it might harm the temple's reputation." The abbot reached out and laid a frail hand on Kei's wrist. "Your path must be your own, Kei. I cannot walk it for you, but you must also be prepared for the judgment of others. Zen often asks us to tear down illusions, including the illusions of what others expect. Yet we live in a society with real consequences." Kei bowed his head, tears threatening to form. "Thank you, master. I will not act rashly." Shunryu withdrew his hand. "Go. Reflect. Meditate not just with your mind, but with your whole being. The truth will reveal itself." Kei bowed deeply and left the chamber. The corridor felt strangely bright, as if the morning sun had intensified during their talk. Shinji was waiting outside, his face unreadable. Without a word, Kei walked past him, heading to the garden, his thoughts swirling. The abbot knows, and he does not condemn me. But the path forward remained unclear. Haruko's dilemma. At the incense shop, Haruko woke late, having struggled to sleep after the emotional night. She assisted her grandparents with the post-festival cleanup. Many of the shop's wares had sold out, and she spent the morning taking inventory of what needed restocking. Yet her mind constantly drifted back to Kei and the words they had exchanged on the footbridge. Fumi noticed Haruko's abstraction. As they sorted bundles of dried herbs, she spoke quietly. "Did you enjoy the festival last night, child?" Haruko paused. "Yes, Oba-chan. It was unforgettable." She hesitated, then decided to share. "We spent some time together, Kei-san and I." Fumi nodded, her expression gentle. "I thought so. Your eyes carry both joy and worry. That young monk treads a difficult path, but so do you." Haruko swallowed, recalling the tension in Kei's voice when he spoke of the monastery. "He's torn," she said. "I don't want to be the cause of any trouble for him." Fumi set down a bundle of sage and took Haruko's hands. "Listen to me, my dear. Life is not always about avoiding trouble. Sometimes trouble arises because we are discovering truth. The question is whether you face it with honesty and compassion or run from it." Haruko felt tears well in her eyes. But what if he must leave the monastery or betray his vow? Fumi's eyes shone with empathy. Sometimes love and spiritual practice are not two. They can be one path. Many Zen priests in our land have married. Others remain celibate. Each must find their own way. No one can decide for Kei but himself. Her grandmother's words comforted her, though they did not dissolve her anxiety. She squeezed Fumi's hands, nodded, and resumed her tasks. I must trust Kei's inner wisdom. Yet a small voice inside her yearned for some reassurance that their bond would not fade into a memory. Ripples of conflict. 2 days later, a group of parishioners from a neighboring region visited the temple, having heard of the abbot's reputation. The monks busied themselves preparing the guest hall and ensuring ample food. Kei was assigned to greet them and manage their lodging arrangements. Among the group was a stern-faced official, Lord Endo, who had connections to the local daimyo. He was a devout patron of Buddhist temples, yet he adhered to a rigid moral code. During the midday meal, he struck up a conversation with Abbot Shunryu in the monastery courtyard, while Kei served tea. "I have heard rumors," Lord Endo said in a low voice, glancing at Kei. "A monk here has been seen fraternizing with a local shopkeeper's daughter. Is there truth to this scandal?" Kei froze, teapot in hand. Abbot Shunryu maintained a calm demeanor. "Rumors often form around half-truths, my lord. Our monks do procure supplies in the city." Lord Endo's lips tightened. "I do not wish to see the temple's reputation tarnished. These are dangerous times, with Westerners at our shores. We must maintain our traditions and moral structures. A monk consorting with a woman, it is not befitting." Shunryu offered a slight bow. "We respect your concern. We also ask for understanding that Zen practice can manifest in many ways. The ultimate goal is liberation from delusion, not mere conformity." Lord Endo snorted. "Be that as it may, a scandal could jeopardize the temple's standing with the daimyo. I advise caution. If such impropriety exists, it should be rectified swiftly." With that, the official strode away, leaving Kei feeling an icy knot in his stomach. Shunryu turned to Kei, eyes full of sympathy. "Do not let fear guide you, Kei. But be mindful. Winds of change blow from all directions." Kei bowed, numbness spreading through him. "This is more serious than I thought. If Lord Endo pressed the daimyo, the temple could lose funding or face other repercussions. The abbot's tolerance did not guarantee society's acceptance." A choice looms. That evening, after the guests had retired, Kei stood on the veranda gazing at the starry sky. A hand lightly touched his shoulder. He turned to see Shinji, who wore a conflicted expression. "You heard Lord Endo," Shinji said quietly. "If this continues, we risk the temple's future. The abbot is understanding, but outside forces might not be." Kei's throat felt tight. "I never intended to harm the temple." Shinji's gaze softened. "I believe you. We came here as boys, Kei, both offered to the temple by our families. We have grown under these eaves. It pains me to see the monastery endangered. You must decide whether you can let go of this attachment or leave the order to pursue it." The weight of Shinji's words pressed on Kei's chest. Is it truly so black and white? "Perhaps not," Shinji replied, "but that's how the world will see it. I beg you to think carefully." He left Kei standing alone in the moonlit courtyard. The gravel in the garden reflected pale silver, reminiscent of the swirling illusions Zen tries to illuminate. Is love an illusion, or the ultimate truth? Kei could not find an easy answer. Memories of Haruko filled his mind. Her quiet determination, her gentle compassion, the way her eyes reflected the lantern light. He knew she did not wish to cause him or the monastery any pain. And yet, it seems unstoppable, like the tide. Secret Council. Despite the risk, Kei felt compelled to see Haruko one more time. Late one afternoon, he sneaked away from the temple grounds to the city, mindful of being discreet. The narrow lanes were alive with vendors and townspeople finishing their daily chores. Eventually, he reached the incense shop. Haruko's expression brightened upon seeing him, but then clouded with worry as she took him aside. "You shouldn't be here if it's dangerous," she whispered. "My grandfather said a local official has been snooping around. He wants to ensure the temple maintains propriety." Kei nodded, breathless from tension. "I know, but I had to speak with you. There may come a time soon when I must decide whether to remain a monk or leave." Haruko's eyes widened, tears gathering. "I would never ask you to renounce your vows for me. I only want you to be happy." He touched her hand gently. "This is bigger than either of us. Our feelings are real, yet the vow I took is real too. The abbot doesn't forbid love, but society might punish us both." She lowered her gaze, tears slipping down her cheeks. "If you must go, I understand. But if you decide to stay, know that I welcome you." Kei felt tears prick his own eyes. He pulled her into a brief embrace, the first time they had ever held each other so closely. The scent of incense and her hair filled his senses, a mixture of comfort and sorrow. Then they separated, each keenly aware of the peril this closeness invited. He whispered, "No matter what happens, I believe our meeting has shown me a deeper truth. It is not separate from Zen, but perhaps the very heart of it." She nodded, placing a trembling palm against his cheek. "Let that truth guide you." Outside, they heard Ichiro clearing his throat, signaling that someone might be approaching. Kei gently pulled away, slipping back through the curtains to the front of the shop. He bowed to Ichiro, who stood by the entrance, arms crossed. The old man's gaze was stern, yet not unkind. "Be careful, young monk," he said quietly. "Love is a precious thing, but it can shatter if held too tightly or too loosely." Kei bowed again, taking his leave. The words reverberated in his mind as he made his way back to the temple under the gathering dusk. Held too tightly or too loosely. Was there a middle way? A path that honored both his spiritual calling and his love for Haruko? A storm gathers. That night, a sudden summer storm swept through Kyoto. Lightning flashed across the sky, thunder rattled the wooden walls, and rain hammered down. Kei lay in his small chamber, unable to sleep. The wind howled outside, tearing at the paper screens. He felt as though nature itself reflected his internal turmoil. He rose, lit a small lamp, and sat cross-legged on the tatami mat. Outside, the storm raged, but in his mind he sought refuge in the breath. Memories of the abbot's words surfaced. "You must also be prepared for the judgment of others. Zen often asks us to tear down illusions, including the illusions of what others expect." He recalled Haruko's trembling voice. "I never wanted to cause difficulties for you." He remembered Shinji's warning. "You must decide whether you can let go of this attachment or leave the order." Lightning illuminated the room, revealing the faint outlines of calligraphy on the walls, verses from the Heart Sutra. Kei's eyes landed on the phrase, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, practicing deep prajnaparamita, clearly saw that the five aggregates are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. In the flash, he glimpsed the truth that all these forms, monastery, society, vow, love, are manifestations of emptiness. Yet they are also real in the sense that they shape human lives. Beneath thunder's roar, a silent bud opens wide. Truth in each raindrop. A haiku flickered through his thoughts. He inhaled, exhaled, and let the storm's fury resonate in his chest. Something must change. He knew the next dawn would bring a crossroads he could no longer avoid. Thus ends episode 5, in which conflict escalates. Pressure from powerful patrons and the rigid moral codes of the era challenge Kei's emerging love with Haruko. The abbot's wisdom offers a path, but it is an inward path that requires courage and clarity. The storm that rages through Kyoto mirrors the tempest in Kei's heart, heralding a pivotal decision that could transform both his life and the understanding of Zen within the monastery's ancient walls. Episode 6. A single path, seen anew. Dawn broke clear after the night storm, the air washed clean by rain. Puddles glistened like mirrors on the stone paths, reflecting the gentle light of the rising sun. All across Kyoto, people ventured out to assess any damage from the tempest. Broken branches and scattered debris littered some streets, but the mood felt cautiously optimistic. Storms come and go, and life continues. The Abbot's Council. At the monastery, Kei rose with renewed determination. He dressed in his simple monk's robe and made his way to the abbot's chamber. The corridor was silent except for the dripping of water from the eaves. When he slid open the door, he found Abbot Shunryu seated at a low table, sipping tea. The old man raised an eyebrow as Kei bowed deeply. "Master," Kei began, his voice steady, "I have come to ask permission to leave the monastery, at least for a time." Shunryu set down his teacup, regarding Kei with an almost fatherly concern. "So, you have chosen to walk another road?" Kei hesitated, searching for the right words. "Not another road, master, but perhaps a continuation of the same road in a different guise. I believe I must explore the love I feel for Haruko. Yet I do not wish to abandon the teachings. I want to see if there's a way to embrace both." The abbot's gaze softened. "Then you are not asking to renounce your monkhood?" Kei shook his head. "I'm uncertain. I only know that if I stay within these walls, I risk living a lie. My heart is divided. I recall the example of some Zen masters who lived in the world, had families, and still attained enlightenment. But I must discover my own truth." A silence fell, punctuated only by a distant bird call. Finally, Shunryu spoke. "Very well. You have my blessing to depart. But remember, Zen is not a robe or a shaved head. It is the direct pointing to our true nature. Whether you live in a temple or a shop, see clearly, Kei." Kei bowed, tears gathering in his eyes. "Thank you, master, for your compassion." Shunryu placed a hand on Kei's shoulder. "You may take some robes, your prayer beads, and a few belongings. Leave with no regrets. Know that our door remains open should you wish to return." Overwhelmed by gratitude, Kei bowed again and left to gather his modest possessions. Word spread quickly among the monks, some reacting with surprise, others with quiet acceptance. Shinji approached Kei in the courtyard as he was preparing to depart. "I suppose this is goodbye?" Shinji asked. Kei looked at him with a respectful nod. "I think of it more as farewell for now. Thank you for guiding me when I first arrived." A flicker of emotion crossed Shinji's face. "May you find what you seek. And if you ever return, I will welcome you as a brother." They bowed to each other, the grey morning light casting soft shadows on the temple walls. Haruko's joy and doubt. At mid-morning, Haruko stood behind the shop counter, sorting dried flowers. Her thoughts remained on Kei, wondering how he fared after their last meeting. Suddenly, the door slid open, And there he was, dressed still as a monk but carrying a small bundle of personal items. Her eyes widened in astonishment. "Kei-san!" She hurried around the counter. You came!" He bowed, smiling through his own nervousness. "Yes, I've left the monastery." Her heart seemed to race. She searched his eyes for a sign of regret or sadness, but found instead a quiet resolve. "Does that mean you're no longer a monk?" Kay set down his bundle. "Technically, I'm still ordained, but I'm on indefinite leave. In our tradition, it's possible to live outside the monastery and still practice Zen. What that means for my future, I don't fully know, but I do know I can't continue to hide my feelings for you." Tears filled her eyes, a rush of relief and fear mingling in her heart. "Are you certain? What about your vow and the temple's reputation?" He took her hands gently. "The abbot gave me his blessing. Society may still judge, but I realize that following the way means being true to the unfolding of life. Love, too, can be a practice if approached with mindfulness and compassion." She trembled, squeezed his hands. Then, "Welcome, Kei-san. I I don't know what our future looks like, but I'm willing to walk with you to find out." Ichiro and Fumi, hearing voices, emerged from the back of the shop. Ichiro's brows raised at the sight of Kei's bundle, and Fumi's face lit with a quiet smile. Kei bowed deeply to them. "I come asking for your understanding. I do not wish to disrupt your life here, but I have nowhere else to go." Ichiro regarded him for a long moment, then sighed. "Well, young monk or ex-monk, we have a small room you could use if you don't mind living modestly." Fumi added, "We have grown fond of you, Kei-san, though we didn't always show it. If your heart is true, you're welcome here." Kei bowed, overcome with gratitude. "Thank you. I will do my best to repay your kindness." Haruko watched the scene, her heart brimming. For the first time, the possibility of a shared future seemed real, yet beneath the joy, she wondered if external pressures might still threaten them. The watchful eye of society. Word traveled swiftly through Kyoto's tight-knit community. Some praised the romance as a testament to love's power. Others whispered that Kei had broken monastic rules. A few customers stopped coming to the incense shop, disapproving of this scandal. Yet many more remained loyal, unconcerned with the details of Kei's vow. Lord Endo, however, was not pleased. He viewed the affair as an affront to the moral order he esteemed. Though he did not hold direct authority over Kei, he made his distaste known in private circles, pressuring certain influential families to distance themselves from Haru's fine incense and sundries. Concerned about the declining business, Ichiro pulled Kei aside one afternoon. "We're losing some customers," he said bluntly. "I'm not blaming you, but it's a reality." Kei bowed his head. "I will find ways to help, perhaps by delivering goods to more distant neighborhoods or seeking new customers." Ichiro nodded gruffly. "We'll manage. Just be aware that not everyone in Kyoto welcomes change." Kei swallowed the knot in his throat. He began making deliveries, traveling to smaller villages around Kyoto to sell incense. Haruko worried about him on these journeys, but he returned each evening, determined to support their livelihood. A shared practice. Despite the challenges, Kei and Haruko found moments of quiet companionship. Sometimes, at dusk, they would walk together by the river, sharing thoughts on Zen and life. Kei continued his meditation practice, rising early to sit in a corner of the shop's storage room. Haruko occasionally joined him, curious about Zazen. He taught her how to position her body, how to follow her breath, and how to let thoughts drift by. One day, as they finished a meditation session, Haruko whispered, "I feel so present. Like the shop, the city, even you are all floating in the same vastness." Kei smiled, recalling the Abbot's teachings. That's the insight. No separation, just the illusion of it. Love, emptiness, and everyday life are all the same. She looked at him, heart open. "Does that mean we should never worry about tomorrow?" He chuckled softly. "We will worry because we're human. But we can hold worry gently. Knowing it too will pass." They lapsed into a comfortable silence, the late afternoon sun casting golden beams through the tiny window. In that stillness, Kay felt a kind of fulfillment he had never experienced, a sense of wholeness that transcended the conflict between monastery and city. This is practice too, he thought, to live in harmony with another being. Confrontation and understanding. A few weeks later, as summer peaked, Lord Endo decided to confront Kay directly. The official arrived at Haru's shop one afternoon, accompanied by a pair of stern-looking retainers. Haruko, tending the counter, felt her heart freeze as he stepped inside with an air of authority. "Your Excellency, welcome," Ichiro said politely, bowing. "What brings you here?" Lord Endo's gaze swept the shop, landing on Kay, who emerged from the back. "I have heard you are living here, young monk. Abandoned your vows, have you?" Kay bowed slightly, heart pounding. "I'm still devoted to the Buddha's teaching, my lord. I reside here to practice in the world." Endo scoffed. "Practice in the world? Is that what they call living with a woman now?" He glanced at Haruko dismissively, then focused on Kay. "Your scandalous behavior undermines the temple's integrity. I demand you cease tarnishing the sanctity of monastic life." Haruko felt anger flare in her. She opened her mouth to speak, but Kay gently raised a hand to still her. He stepped forward. "My lord, Zen does not belong exclusively to monasteries or officials. If my presence offends, I apologize. But I cannot pretend to follow a path that is no longer mine to tread alone." Lord Endo's face darkened. "You dare defy me? The daimyo will hear of this." Ichiro intervened, voice level. "With respect, my lord, Kei-san is no longer a ward of the temple. He does not answer to you." Endo turned on Ichiro. "And your shop's reputation suffers because of him, does it not? The price of your defiance may be more than you can pay." A tense silence gripped the room. Outside, curious passers-by slowed, sensing the commotion within. Kay bowed again, deeper this time. "My lord, if my presence here causes harm, I will leave Kyoto. But I ask you to consider, is the measure of a monk's purity found only in celibacy or in the sincerity of his practice and compassion?" Lord Endo sneered, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He had expected defiance or submission, not this calm conviction. Still, he would not relent publicly. "I will do as I see fit to maintain moral order," he said, turning on his heel. His retainers followed, leaving a charged hush in their wake. Haruko released a shaky breath, tears brimming. "Kay, you'd leave Kyoto for us." He drew her into a comforting embrace, Ichiro and Fumi looking on. "If it spares your family more suffering, I will. But perhaps we can withstand this together." Ichiro exhaled, shaking his head. "We'll not force you out. This shop has weathered many storms, and we'll weather this one too." Fumi added softly, "When light shines in the darkness, shadows appear. But the light itself remains." Reconciliation and revelation. Surprisingly, Lord Endo's threats did not materialize into immediate disaster. Though some families withdrew their patronage, others rallied, curious or supportive of Kay's rare decision. Over time, the shop stabilized, partly due to Kay's efforts to expand their customer base into neighboring villages. With each new journey, he spread word of the shop's high-quality incense and discreetly shared a little Zen wisdom. Weeks turned into months. Kay and Haruko's bond grew, founded on mutual respect and a shared appreciation for the mystery of existence. They spoke of marriage in hushed tones, uncertain of the formalities, but certain of their devotion. Occasionally, Kay would return to the monastery to visit Abbot Shunryu. The abbot greeted him each time with a serene smile, asking no probing questions, offering no condemnation. One autumn morning, Kei and Haruko ventured to the temple together. The maple leaves had turned to fiery reds and golds, carpeting the path in vibrant color. They carried a gift of rare incense for the abbot and the brother monks. Upon arriving, Shinji greeted them at the gate, not with censure but with a nod of cautious acceptance. Abbot Shunryu received them in his small courtyard. The air was crisp, and the koi pond reflected the scarlet leaves. After tea and warm conversation, Kei asked Shunryu if he would officiate their wedding ceremony. Haruko's cheeks flushed as she bowed respectfully. Shunryu's smile deepened. "If that is your wish, I would be honored. Zen belongs to all, and a wedding can be a Zen ceremony too, an affirmation of oneness." Tears glistened in Haruko's eyes. Kei's heart thumped with gratitude. They bowed together, offering thanks to the abbot. Shunryu then recited a brief verse. "Two paths we see, city and temple, you and I, but in truth, one moon." The words resonated in the still air. Haruko felt as though the final piece of a puzzle had clicked into place. They were not forsaking Zen for romance, nor sacrificing romance for Zen. They were living the single path from two perspectives, like two ends of a rainbow meeting in a single arc of light. Epilogue: A lantern for the ages. The wedding took place in early winter, a small ceremony under the watchful gaze of the temple's ancient maples. Friends from the city and monks from the temple gathered, curious to witness this union. Abbot Shunryu chanted sutras, blessing the couple with words that transcended dogma. Ichiro and Fumi smiled proudly, tears sparkling in their aged eyes. Afterward, Haruko and Kei returned to the incense shop as husband and wife. Life was not without challenges. Money was sometimes tight, and occasional gossip persisted, but their shared practice of mindfulness and compassion guided them through. Kei continued to study Zen texts, occasionally teaching Zazen to local villagers. Haruko managed the shop with ever-increasing skill, developing new incense blends that drew customers from afar. Over time, the shop flourished. Each year, when the Night of 1,000 Lanterns arrived, they recalled the night they had realized their two paths were one. Standing by the Kamogawa River, they would set a lantern afloat together, whispering prayers for the city, for the monastery, for all beings, and for the ongoing discovery of unity in apparent difference. One evening, many years later, as they stood by the water's edge with a lantern in hand, their children scampered around them, chasing fireflies. Kei lit the small candle within the lantern, and Haruko wrote a single line in calligraphy on its side. "All lights, one river." They placed it gently on the water, and as it drifted away, Kei recalled the old Diamond Sutra passage. "All conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, or shadows. Like dew or a flash of lightning, thus we shall perceive them." He smiled, looking at Haruko. Perhaps in that fleeting bubble of life, they had found something timeless, an understanding that the heart's love and the way of Zen were never separate. Lantern on the stream, a passing glow in the night. Though brief, it is whole. And so the lamp floated on, merging with 1,000 others, until the river carried it beyond the bend into the wide and unknowable sea.